Hey racers, and welcome back to another live stream. Finally worked out how to flick this camera around, so you'll notice over this side, everything's not back to front, but it's back to front for me now. So hopefully that makes your viewing a little bit easier. Today's topic for today's live stream, though, I've got to get used to which way to move my body because it's the opposite way on the camera. Or the topic for today's live stream is cycling good for MX fitness? Hey Jason. So I know that, in general, cycling is a big thing for racing and racing fitness. Okay, you see all the supercross guys, all the motocross guys, Aussie level, American level, European level. Cycling is the in thing. That's what everyone does. But is it actually the thing that you need to improve your racing fitness or your riding fitness, or are there better tools out there? So, first of all, I'll weigh it up quickly in the pros and cons, and then I'll give you my hey Rick. Then I'll give you my recommendation on how to implement it so it's actually effective for your racing. So the pros that I came up with. So first of all, the good pro about cycling is that it builds your aerobic system. So your body has what's called the aerobic system and anaerobic system. Okay, so your aerobic system is where your body is using oxygen. Okay, and where your anaerobic system is where it's not using oxygen. Okay, to help to fuel your body. So anaerobic it can only work for a short period of time. Okay, so depending on how good your anaerobic system is, generally lasts for a couple of minutes. Okay, so what that means is when your body's not using oxygen as energy, okay, or using it to propel itself forward or to push hard, your body can operate at a much higher intensity. Okay, when it is using oxygen, it takes a longer time for oxygen to be able to come in, to be absorbed, and to do what it needs to do to help to keep you moving and doing what you need to do. And so what that means is your intensity drops. Okay, so anaerobic is very high, keeps your body operating at very high intensity, but you only use it for short periods of time. So like if you went out to the park and did a sprint and started sprinting, the first minute, 2 minutes would be your quickest. And then after that, once you drop from the anaerobic energy system to the aerobic energy system, you might still be giving it 100% effort, but your intensity drops off. Your body just can't keep up the same speed it did before. That's why we all slow down eventually, right? So what cycling is good for, and specifically I'm talking about long distance cycling. So those of you that go out and do maybe an hour of cycling or 45 minutes, or go out even for an hour mountain bike ride or more, that's the aerobic system. Okay, so cycling in that way is very good for building that aerobic system, which is using oxygen, okay, which is a lower intensity, okay, so your body's not operating at high intensity, it's operating at a lower intensity for a longer period of time, okay, it's a very sustainable pace, hey David, that your body's able to hold. So cycling's great for that, and it's also low impact, right? So like in comparison to running, for example, running's very high impact, okay, your body's just bam, 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 bam on the floor, rep after rep, step after step, stride after stride. The great thing about cycling is it's very low impact. So if you've got previous injuries or previous niggles, the chance of flaring those up while you're cycling are going to be quite minimal compared to going running, okay, which for a lot of you is going to flare a whole heap of things up. So what are the cons of cycling, or particularly long distance cycling? Is longer distance cycling will work against strength building, okay? So when we're in that aerobic capacity, okay, that 45 minutes or half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, and we're ticking along doing steady state training. What starts to happen is your body starts to break down muscle. Okay, so aerobic training and strength training work against each other. They don't work together. So when we're on the bike, as always bang on about, you need to be strong. Okay, the stronger we can get you, the lighter the bike will feel, and the lighter the bike feels, the less energy you use on the bike, the less you fatigue, which means the longer you can ride harder for. Okay, and that's ultimately what we're working towards with the strength side. So we want to have strength there and we want to be getting stronger. But if all of our training is made up of aerobic training, okay, that longer distance stuff, like for example, you're doing it in an hour cycle 3 times a week and that's all you do, what's happening is your level of muscle mass is going to decrease, okay, and your level of strength is going to decrease. And now I'm talking about for a trained person, okay? So if you've been doing training overall, that's what's going to happen is if you just switch to all cycling instead of doing weight training, your muscle mass would decrease and your strength would decrease. And so your body weight would probably drop as well, which you might think is a good thing. But what happens is riding the bike strength-wise becomes a lot harder. And the reason that it becomes harder is because now, instead of having the bike's weight here and your level of strength up here, what's happening is if we bring your level of strength down, the weight of the bike now feels much heavier. Okay, that gap between what your maximum strength and the bike's weight could have been like this, but if you're just doing heaps and heaps of cycling, what happens is it's dropping your overall strength. The bike's weight isn't changing. So that gap between the two is very different, which means it's going to wear you out quicker. So it's kind of like a robbing Peter to pay Paul scenario, because you're building up one energy system, which is your aerobic system, which is important for racing, but then you're taking away from your strength. And so they're fighting against each other. So that's the cons of it, really. So how do you implement this? How do I actually make this information useful so you've got something to apply, or you know what to do after you jump off this live stream? There's nothing wrong with doing longer distance training or long distance riding, but you just need to limit the amount that you do. If you do 1 or 2 rides a week because you enjoy it, you enjoy doing the longer distance stuff, that's great. What I encourage you to do with the longer distance stuff to build your aerobic system is use your riding on the bike as the aerobic system. So if you do motocross, go and do 20-minute and half-hour motos when you're out at the track and use that as your aerobic training. Or if you're doing enduros, go and do 1, 2, 3, 4-hour rides on the weekend on your bike and use that as your aerobic training. I guess the other con for cycling, especially if you're doing the longer distance stuff, is you're only building the aerobic system. You're not focusing on building the anaerobic system. The reason the anaerobic system is important for your racing is because if you look at, say, a motocross track, there are parts of a motocross track that are very high intensity, and there are parts of a motocross track that are low intensity. So if you take a motocross track, like it might be like a really whooped out, hey Dale, a really whooped out section might take a lot of physical effort. You're really muscling the bike around, really using a lot of energy and strength. And then on the opposite side, there might be like floating through the air over a jump, which takes little to no effort, or like coming down into a harder pack section where it's a bit smoother and you can sit down. It takes little to no effort. So the intensity is constantly going like this, okay, as we're going through the ride, through our race. So if we're doing all aerobic training, which trains our intensity to be like this, then it's not going to get the highest level of transfer over to our racing because they're opposites, right? So the way that we work on the aerobic system, the anaerobic system, which is the high intensity stuff, the short, sharp stuff, is through using intervals. So instead of, like, if you like cycling, instead of doing cycling and going for 1-hour rides every week, you could incorporate some hill sprints into your training. So what that would look like is you go and find a hill. It might take you, I don't know, a minute to get to the top of the hill. You sprint to the top of the hill as hard as you can, and then rest for a minute. Okay, or roll back down, rest for a minute, and then go again. And you might do that 3 times, 6 times, 8 times, 9 times, however, depending on the level of fitness and the level of difficulty that hill is for you. And that will work your aerobic system. And so the whole goal there is we're just focusing on that sprint up the hill. Okay, we're putting your body under a heap of stress, a heap of load, and then giving it a chance to recover so that it can go hard again. And so that is what will get that anaerobic system working. So if you do enjoy cycling, you do want to implement cycling, do say 1 or 2 longer distance rides throughout the week. Preferably you do none and you just do your longer distance stuff when you're out on the bike on the weekend, so you can maximize your bike time as well. And then you do the interval training during the week. So go and do your hill sprints 2 or 3 times a week on your cycling bike. That being said, the cycling won't build strength for you. Okay, it won't build leg strength. Again, and I say this all the time, if you're coming off the couch and you do cycling, you will build leg strength. Okay, because you've got no strength and cycling is some form of resistance, so you will build a little bit of strength. But what will happen is you'll build strength over the first 4 to 6 weeks, and then it will start to plateau out a little bit. Okay, and your strength won't improve much past there. So the way that you keep it going after that is you do weight training. Okay, so the great thing about weight training is you can constantly increase the load. So like with cycling, right, you got to have it in the right gear to be able to ride the right types of hills or sections that you're riding. With weight training, you don't have that. You can load it up as much as you want. So we can keep getting you stronger and stronger and stronger. You can start off doing squats with 20 kilos, then you can do 30, then 50, then 80, then 100, then 120, then 150. And there's always like a next level that you can use to increase, whereas cycling, it's a bit harder to progress and gauge like that. So if you did want to implement cycling, that's how you implement it with the intervals. Hey, Reese. And then you would incorporate strength training on top of that as well. So the way that you would do that is, so like what I do with our riders is they do 3 sessions a week, which are roughly an hour. The first half of that session is made up of mostly strength training. the second half of that session is made up of mostly interval training, okay, short, sharp, high intensity stuff. So cycling doesn't make up for strength work, okay? Cycling is purely a tool for building your anaerobic system, hey Brian, and your aerobic system. Strength building in terms of weight training is what's used for building strength, and that's things like your deadlifts, overhead presses, bent over rows, back squats, okay, with the barbell. They're your best strength training exercises. So it's not a matter of, like, cycling is not going to be a one-hit wonder in terms of just cycle and you'll have all bases covered, okay? Cycling is a conditioning tool. Like I said, when you first start getting into training, it will feel like a strength workout, but after that, you'll realize that it's just a conditioning tool, okay? Once you get really strong, that's probably just worth noting as well, is strength training also helps with your cardio. So when you get stronger, right? So let's say your legs are twice as strong because you got your squat from 50 kilos to 100 kilos, right? Imagine what it's going to feel like when you go and ride a cycling bike now. It's going to be a lot easier to pedal because you've got a lot more power for every pedal that you have. Hey, Stuart, you've got a lot more power for every pedal that you have, right? So which means you can pedal harder. And if you can pedal harder, then you can improve your cardio and conditioning to a higher level. So the stronger you get yourself, the bigger the base and the better the base that will give you for your cardio. Same if you use a rowing machine. If you can double your deadlift from 50 kilos to 100 kilos, when you're pulling the rowing handle now and using your legs to generate a whole heap of force, imagine the force you can put through that rower if you're twice as strong now, right? Probably be twice as much force you can put through the rower. So you can row harder for longer periods of time, and you give yourself a bigger base to develop your cardio or your conditioning. So it's not so much about what's the perfect tool, what's the perfect exercise. It's a combination of exercises, okay? It's like making a cake. There's no one ingredient that's going to make the best cake. It's a range of ingredients. You need to have the right ingredients put together in the right ratios, which give you the great cake at the end. And that's the same with training. It's the right cardio and conditioning and the right strength work combined together. If there's any questions, guys, feel free to post up and let me know what you have. If there's anything I can answer for you with regards to cycling, but that's really it. I know it's more of a short and sharp live stream for today. I haven't dug too deeply into that, but that's all it is. Cycling is a great tool if that's what you love to do. I don't use cycling specifically with the riders that I work with in terms of a cycle bike. I'll use an exercise bike. And the reason an exercise bike is great is because it's just easier to measure. There's less variables. We can adjust the resistance a little bit more. I'm not trying to make a workout based on the type of road that you have and how the weather is and the wind conditions, okay, and how many hills you've got. It's a very even playing field for using an exercise bike. Okay, it's stationary, it's in the same spot. We can control the resistance, control the variables. There's no wind, there's no weather. There's none of those things that are going to get in the way of measuring progress and being consistent with the training. So, but if you do like cycling, by all means, get out there and implement what I've just gone through. I do have some rowing workouts that I put together. Some of you may have seen them already. Just some free downloads. There's a sample of 5 free rowing workouts that I put together. Most of them are interval work, so work on the anaerobic training. And one of them is a longer distance one, which will work more on your aerobic system. You can also use them for cycling as well. You can use them on an exercise bike, you can use them on your cycling bike, or you can use them with a rowing machine, okay, even though they say rowing workouts. So what I'll do, I'll put them in the comments for you, for those of you that would like to download them. It's not a whole program, okay, they're just free workouts that I put together that can at least get you guys started or build some momentum. Or if you've never experienced, you've done a lot of aerobic training, longer distance stuff, and you've never experienced anaerobic training, this will give you a great head start, at least give you a sample or something to work with. So just click on the link that's in the comments now that I put there for you. Put your details in and we'll email the PDF straight to you. I made it look nice and pretty, so hopefully it's visually appealing as well as actually helps you with your fitness. And then on the second page, there's also a coaching application form there. So for the small amount of you guys that might be interested in doing some work with me, you can fill that out and just give me some more details about what you're working towards with your racing and what your goals are for the rest of this year. But that's really it. So if you'd like to grab a copy of those workouts, click on the link in the comments below. But otherwise, hope to put some more videos together for you guys later this week. See you guys.